Oh, here we go. I have no idea how you do it. Like four kids teaching English, coaching Lamar. Like, I don't know where to start, but like we were wondering before you popped on, like how did you guys link up, and how in the hell do you make this life work?
Yeah. Well, true story. Like, it's a funny story with Lamar. Like, no background, no relation to him at all. I don't know if you know South Florida. So I'm from Miami. I'm from Miami, but he grew up in Pompano Beach, which is about 25, 30 minutes away. And he then, when he was in middle school, moved maybe 20, 30 minutes north of that to an area called Boynton Beach, which is about an hour away from Miami. So I have no clue about him. He played in the youth football league, but I actually coached in another youth football league. Down here in South Florida, we have like 3 football leagues. So he was in another league, all of this. Well, what happens is my wife gets a job. We live in Miami-Dade County, but my wife gets a job in Palm Beach County, which is 2 counties north, which is the county that he moved to in school. And I start working at a school there, Boynton Beach, Florida. And not the school he's at, but another school. And there's a kid who transfers in from Boynton Beach High where Lamar was. He's like, and so I had coached Amari Cooper in high school. And this kid loved Amari Cooper. And he was like, man, there's this kid at Boynton by the name of, we call him Pompano because he was from Pompano Beach. He's the real, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. But he's no Amari Cooper. So I start hearing about him there. And I start hearing about this kid, Lamar Jackson, in high school, whatever. So my son plays quarterback in youth football. And he's pretty good. And so a guy comes up to me and says, you should take him to Lamar Jackson's trainer, who trained him as a youth. And I'm like, now Lamar, I think he had now got his freshman. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, who's Lamar Jackson? You know what I mean? He's just another kid from down here. So that right before the sophomore year, I've been coaching my son. I'm a high school head coach, but you know how it is, dad-son relationship. I'm like, I need another voice. And so Lamar Jackson had just had the great Music City Bowl game. I think he went for 200 and 200. Okay. Now, at this time, my son wasn't really a mobile quarterback. I really was training him to be like a pocket passer, like, you know what I mean? Because we know the stereotypes and all of that. But the one thing was, I said, man, I need another voice. This guy, Van Warren, he at least knows greatness, right? Even though my son may not be a quarterback like Lamar, he at least knows greatness, right? So if you've been around greatness, you know, you can give something to my kid, because I just need to give him another voice. Well, go out there with Van Warren. My son starts training. We start talking. Lamar's mom is out there. She's the first person out there. She's got the kids doing push-ups, sit-ups, run. She's like a hardcore drill sergeant. And I'm like, who is this lady talking to my kid like this, right? Come to find out, Lamar's mom, she's like, you need to change your cleats. They're too heavy. Get this type of cleat. And I'm like, okay, lady, you know what I mean? So, and I'm like, no, this lady's crazy, but she knows what she's talking about as far as the conditioning stuff. So long story short, after that, son goes out. I start talking with mom and Van Warren. They start seeing my football acumen. What happens is I start helping out, and Lamar comes in on break after college, and they're like, I think you should start helping us with Lamar. And that's kind of where it goes from there.
That's amazing. I love it. Like,
Yeah.
back to the youth football scene. I don't know if this is related or not, but I can't tell you how many times, Joshua, like, so many people from that area. Marquise Brown was telling me about it first. Like, youth football in South Florida is insane. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you got people gambling on the games, like big, like thousands of dollars.
So yeah, so I was like, so where are you guys from?
Mona?
You know, around the ring. Where are you guys from?
You guys can go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
from Buffalo here.
Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Upstate New York.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I don't know how it is in upstate New York, Buffalo area, but in South Florida, this is like the Russians, right? In the, you know, remember if you know the Eastern Bloc, Soviet Union, Olympics, you know what I mean? This is like Chinese girls gymnastics, you know what I mean? Like if you're born in South Florida as a boy, you better play football at least 1 year. You know what I mean? Like if you don't, it's going to be like, what's wrong with you? Even kids who hate football played 1 year youth football in South Florida. Like you have to. And so just like Tyler was saying, everybody plays it. It's a rite of passage. Even if you decide after, like I got a kid now, I'm teaching in high school. He's in the 9th grade. I coached him when he was 6 years old. He was the worst player on the team, right? And I saw him in class and he said, name, and I'm like, well, you know that name? He was like, you coached me when I was 6. I hated football. He went to karate right after. But and even the girls were like, you played football? He's like, yeah, you got to play football down here. So anyway, all the kids play football, which means all the men coach. And there's so many leagues, so many teams, so many parks. They're right down the street from each other. So there's like in a neighborhood, there may be 8 or 9 different teams that you can play for. So you don't even have to be good to be a starter on somebody's team because there's so many different parks you can go to. Because there's so many parks, you need all these volunteers, which means the criteria to be a volunteer ain't that high in South Florida, okay? You can have a couple felonies and hey, come on, help us out, all right? It's not a problem at all.
Oh my God.
What happens is you get a lot of shady guys coaching your kid. Now they may love your kid, they may, you know, they may know the game of football, but they also might be doing something on the side, right?
Wow.
And they might, and again, a lot of kids in poverty, so they're buying kids cleats, giving kids rides, all of that stuff. And so a lot of these guys make their money on a different way. Well, what's the, you know, Pete Rose, right? What's the best way to kind of know, you know, to make some money on? Well, gamble on your team or on another team. So what happens in South Florida is there's a lot of betting on youth football. It's huge. There's not a game that doesn't go by that there's not betting. And I'll give you these numbers. I know there's been games, 10, 11, 12-year-old games, where there's been $30,000 on the line.
Oh my God.
And the coach will have that money in their book bag. And they bet all of these people. When my son, true story, when my son was 5 years old, okay, he was the quarterback of a team. They were playing the championship. And I'll never forget this dude. I don't know who this dude is from the neighborhood. He goes to my son and he says, man, come on, man. I got $4,000 riding on y'all today. I'm like, wait, did you just tell my 5-year-old that he doesn't even count the 4,000, right? He doesn't even know what that means. But there's that much money in the game. So now imagine that amount of money on the game, the intensity that the adults watch the game with, right? And I think that's the difference in South Florida football, the intensity that the adults have into it, because unfortunately, a lot of them have big money riding on the line.
And that's kind of how the legend of Lamar grows, right? Like it's just he's dominating, he's making people tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And that's so think of, you know, you talk about South Florida, you got Dalvin Cook, all these guys are youth like heroes. And the thing is, because so we have a youth sports network here. We used to have a youth newspaper, like it's big time. Wow. You know, they put out rankings of the kids when they're starting 5, 6, 7. So we know these kids growing up. A lot of these kids have been interviewed on, there used to be a youth TV show. So it's big time.
I mean, coaches fixing games, right? Like you said, I mean, that's kind
it
of
wouldn't shock me. Like, like it's that because a lot of these coaches have money riding on the youth game. So it's obviously they're rooting for their team or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I've known for a fact when I stopped coaching that some of my son's games, the head coach made bets on the game because I've overheard it.
Wow. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, it's crazy until you live it. I mean, they even wrote a book about youth football down here. I forgot the name of it, but they actually wrote a book about it. I mean, a full-length 300-page novel where they followed these guys around the kids and they talked about it, about the gangsters in the neighborhood, the gamblers, and just how it's intertwined. It's just a way of life here. And it's Florida, so they practice all year round. Just Wednesday, there was some kids 7 years old. They were practicing in helmets and pads.
Well, the
for next
ESPN
season.
30 for 30 on the U, wasn't it with the Miami Booster Club? Like they were, so is that
Yes.
sort of, do you see that kind of influence too, guys from college programs trying to poach these young talent before they're even, into even just amateur status and before they're known?
Yeah, man. The South Florida kid learns early the perks of being a good football player. So one of the things that always took place from back in the 80s were when these guys made money, they throw the kids a pizza party, right? Or they give a kid some money, you know what I mean, for a good game. And so what then happens, because the youth level is highlighted, right? So high schools now act like colleges, right? They're scouting the games. High schools here do home visits. They do home visits where they'll go into the home and have a presentation for parents, because parents are trying to like figure out what school they're going to. There have been coaches, rival coaches I've gone in, who have come up with payment plans for the kids. I'll give you $300 a month and a new pair of Air Force Ones, Nike Air Force Ones every month. Like they come up with deals to get the kids. And so high school and then college, right? So like you said, colleges are out there, local colleges will come check out the games. It's that big. So it starts at an early age where these South Florida kids, no pressure, you know what I mean? They understand the intensity of the games, and they kind of already, so like, I guess the lights aren't big to a South Florida kid as they go up, because they've been living with this pressure since they were 5 or 6.
Man.
Wow, that's unreal.
I mean,
yeah, it's crazy here.
I mean, you guys just fire away with your Lamar questions, because this guy's fielded enough for me over our conversations. But like,
Well, how much money did Lamar make you?
It's funny you say that. It's like he definitely helps, right? You know what I mean? But and I'll be honest, I'm an honest guy, man. Like, with as much accolades come with Lamar, there's just as much hate. You get what I'm saying? There's just as much people who act like I ain't did nothing. You know what I mean? They'll say Lamar is, he's not a quarterback. You know what I mean? So it definitely has helped, but there's a lot of people who still don't believe. I mean, to be honest with you.
how's he doing right now? I mean, it was like he kind of got over that hump with that playoff win. Buffalo, I mean, you got a lot of Bills fans on here. I mean, it was a weird, windy game. Not a lot went right for either offense, frankly.
Right.
And then that one play kind of changed everything. But like, we're out of kind of like, another tough playoff loss. How is he like mentally processing that all? What's he up to right now?
Yeah, well, this is his kind of mental rest period, right? And I would say he's doing well. One thing about Lamar, he's and I mean, I don't want it to be cliche, but he's very much a competitor, right? And his mind is on a Super Bowl. We're talking about youth football, so I'll bring this up. If you ask him what's his most favorite sports memory of all time, right now, again, we're talking about the Heisman Trophy winner, went back and was top 3, the NFL MVP. He'll tell you his best memory ever is winning a youth league football championship at 12 years old, right? And it's actually what drives him. That's why on draft day, when he was like, "You're going to get a Super Bowl out of me," that was such the coolest moment in his life. It's in his mind is like, well, what if I won the real Super Bowl, right? So like that really drives him. So he was, obviously he didn't to go out like that, really trying to win a Super Bowl. Again, he made that statement when he won the draft. But what I try to tell him is it's a process and you're growing and learning, right? And I think every high-level athlete they don't like to think of the process, right? They're like, look, I'm great. Dang it, let me win. And I'm trying to explain to him, and I think he's grasping, but it doesn't get it all the way. It's like there's a process. Like you said, you got in the playoffs rookie year, didn't play well, lost. Second year, didn't play like you wanted to. If you look at the stats, you'd be like, whoa, 500 total yards. But if you watched it, it wasn't what you wanted to do. Came back this year, won a playoff, but then in the next round, it didn't go good. So there's this process, man. There's been some things that have happened rapidly that would blow your mind. But on that road to that championship, there's just a process that he's growing through. And he's getting that. But like any competitor, he wants to win. But he's putting it back on him and focusing on this next season.
Is he all right? I mean, he hit his head pretty hard on the turf. That was tough to watch, even though it was it helped the Bills in a way. That was hard to watch.
Yeah, great
that was
question.
ugly.
No, and I appreciate that. Yes, he is okay, but yeah, that definitely was a concussion. Yeah, he hit his head hard on that turf.
Yeah.
And that sucked. He wants to finish that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to not even have the opportunity to finish, man, that really burned. That fuels the fire.
Little different than those cramps against Cleveland, right? You can't come
Yes.
back.
Oh, and now I feel I always have to state this. They were.
He wasn't
cramps.
taking a dump.
No, he was not taking a dump. And if you know him, you know that's not the case. He'd have been there a lot longer. Yeah, he was taking cramps. Those were cramps. Okay?
That's a point of pride. I mean, if he did take a dump, I'm saying that right at the press conference. Oh yeah, I had to take a dump. Like, well,
Right.
that would have been fun to talk about.
Right. That would, and that's the thing. He's a fun guy like that. So if he took a dump, he'd be like, "Yeah, I had to drop a deuce, and then I came out, and dropped 6 on him." Like he would have said something like that. So it was cramps. It was cramps. Definitely cramps.
So earlier you mentioned about Lamar's mom, and I'm really interested to hear about that relationship because I remember reading around the draft time, which I was super invested in because I wanted the Bills to draft one of those guys. They ultimately did. And I remember reading that some teams were kind of like turned off by that decision to have his mom be his agent. Like, what was that all about, and what is that relationship like between Lamar and his mom?
Man, that's a great question. So number one, let me state for the record, she's not his agent. She's just his manager. He has no agent. And not that and I'll say this, not that they got this from me. They had already done their research on this. But so I used to work for an agent. So I went to law school, graduated, all this, was practicing law. One of the fields that I was interested in was NFL agency. So I actually worked for an NFL agent for a little while down here in South Florida. And I mean, I think most people know, but a lot of people don't know. So that rookie contract is pretty much a couple of blanks that you just fill in. You fill in your name and you kind of sign it, right? There's really not much to do with it. The only thing that you can really kind of argue over is offset money, if you get cut. But again, most of these guys in the first round don't think they're going to get cut. So it's really not a big deal. So he didn't have an agent to save the 3%. That's the maximum an NFL agent can take. But she's his manager. Now, how that came about is, and I'll say this, the background of them is mom has really been the driving force in football. She would take him in the backyard and have him put on pads and do hitting drills with her. She would get in the 3-point stance and hit. She bought one of those big 200-pound tires so that he could hit and work. She would go out there and run 3 miles and hey, you're going to run. Lamar didn't want to do this. He didn't want to do this as a kid. His mom had him do these things. So growing up, mom has been in the picture. Mom has been the driving force trade. Like I said, when he started to learn to throw, and when he met my friend, now my partner, Van Warren, who coaches at that camp, we do it together now. When he came out there at 8, he said, I'll teach you how to, be a quarterback if you could throw the ball 20 yards at 8 years old. He could do that. Well, so they started working. Well, mom came out there and started handling the conditioning. Like I said, she was like the drill instructor. Push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, sprints. She came up with the whole conditioning. So she's always been involved. And so as this process has kept going, what they realized is like, yo, if I've gone through my whole life and you're the person I've trusted the most, and you've gotten me to this point, like if it ain't broke, why fix? If it ain't broke, there's nothing to fix. Let's keep it going. I trust you. So what mom has done is mom reads up on things, she researches on things till she gets a handle of it, and she watches up. So she looks over every contract. They've been very judicious in the contracts they take. Because what do they want? The freedom. What they realized and learned was there's a lot of these contracts that, again, for us, when we hear like, wait, they'll give you this, but in the small print, they get control of you and your brand. And they wanted to keep that freedom. And so mom does an excellent job of researching stuff and making sure that they stay on path to keep their flexibility and do the deals that they want to do. And they don't have some brand or organization that's now making them make decisions that they don't want to make. So basically, she's been there from the beginning, helping him with decisions, and they work really well together on collaborating and what's the next decision.
I mean, so what happens now? Like, if we're just bullshitting here over beers, we're not writing stories or anything. Like, I mean, that's a huge negotiation at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens
Yeah.
got to decide. I mean, he's gonna command, a contract that's right up there with anybody. So, like,
Yeah.
how does that go? Is Lamar talking to the front office like himself? Is it his mom? Are you like?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
It's
so just,
happening right now, I'd imagine.
yeah, like this is it's about to be showtime, right? And honestly, it is a huge decision. I will say, I don't know what they're going to do in that sense. Like talking about it as of right now, it's status quo. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'll just say this: I don't know, right, what the final decision. As of now, though, they're going to handle it. And if you don't recall, Russell Okung used to be. He was his own. He started to do his
Right.
own negotiations. I believe he was vice president of the NFLPA. If you remember during the draft, he actually wrote an article, a pretty good article about Lamar and his mom doing it on their own and how it can be done. So I do believe they feel like they can handle it. But there will be certain things they need to look out for because this is the big money deal. This ain't just fill in the blanks like the first one.
Richard Sherman did it too, right? Out
Yes,
with
yes,
San
yeah.
Francisco. I mean, I do like that trend. It's like,
Yeah,
get every penny you can. It kind of comes down to like the Ravens just have to decide. Like, I don't know. I mean, just
yeah,
they should just kind of know at this point which direction
yeah.
they want to go to. I would think, but
Yeah, I like you're saying, I think as much as we say it's as big, but like you said, it's kind of going to be. It is what it is. You know what I mean? There's a market. You want to lock them up. There's probably going to be a certain amount that they're looking for Ravens, and they'll meet in the middle. I'm sure to get done. He loves the Ravens, and they love him. So I think it'll be worked out.
awesome.
And there's enough people that can help and look over the contract.
All right, man. So somebody jump in here. I don't want to dominate this. Jason, I know you got one.
Sorry about that. Had to unmute. That was a mistake calling on me, though. I'm about to ask the nerdiest question you've ever heard in your life.
Okay.
So last night I stayed up so late watching Dead Poet Society, probably the only movie about an English teacher in all of history. So as a coach and an
Right
English
on.
teacher, are you out there like quoting Walt Whitman? What do you reach for? Do you ever go back to the classroom?
I'm trying to think. Have I ever quoted a famous? No, I don't think I have out there on the field because unfortunately, most of those guys wouldn't even know what I'm talking about, right? I'm like, I'm always just disappointed with people's English knowledge, football players at least. But the classroom comes in so heavy out there on the field. I think one of the things we've gotten away from, I can say at least in Florida, high school sports, is that a lot of coaches aren't teachers. You know what I mean? They're guys that maybe know the game, but they don't know the psychology or the psyche of the student, right? And how to get messages across. And just kind of even knowing, especially with English and reading, a lot of people don't like to read, especially in this age, where kids are looking at pictures and so forth. So there's what you call the frustration point, where when I'm working with a student, and I'm just like, they don't get it. Like they're frustrated. They're not going to be able to read this anymore. They're not going to be able to comprehend. Well, I take that onto the field. I can tell when like a player is just frustrated and it's kind of like, all right, I need to hold up. So I'm always thankful for my English degree and being a teacher, the analysis that comes from reading, and even just the fact that and this is another point, like, the Poet Society and so forth with reading and writing in English, it's so much about expression and communication. So it's one of the reasons I do believe, again, Lamar was not, to me, the prototypical quarterback, right? The prototypical to me was Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and so forth, right? But what I do think when you become an English teacher, you realize there's so many different ways to write. Like I think when we were all young, we learned the 5-paragraph setting. But then when you start getting into higher levels of English, you realize, man, there's so many different prose, poetry, so many different literary devices. You realize there's so many different ways to write and communicate. And that really started to shape my mind with the quarterback position. There's so many ways to play this quarterback position. And so my mind started to open up with Lamar and from now on, every other quarterback.
Well, it's a Robin Williams classic. It was like his first serious role.
Yes.
And if your only takeaway from that movie is Carpe Diem and not
I
the
was just about to say
200
Carpe
other
Diem.
lines of great
Yes.
poetry that's in there, then
Yes,
you're basic.
everybody knows
That's-
Latin now because of that movie, right? Yes. And for the record, I took Latin in high school. Yes.
Oh,
So
love it.
no Tennyson, no Keats, no Walt Whitman on the football field yet.
No, not
you
yet.
gotta start.
But now, because of you, Jason, I am going to pull some out, and I'll let you know how it goes. I'm going to pull
All right.
some out.
You report to Tyler. I'll hear from him.
All right, sounds good.
How do you do it? Like, how do you do it with? I mean, right as we're doing this Zoom, I've got my daughter. She's on the monitor here. She's sleeping right down the hall, and it's like, we've got one baby boy on the way. I'm like trying, balance. Like, and then when we first met there, just chatting on the phone, I'm like, it blew my mind. You're coaching the reigning MVP. Day in and day out, you're communicating daily, and you're teaching, and you're raising 4 kids. Like, what does a day in your life really look like?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I'll say I'll give you the busiest day, right? Or like when we're preparing something, I might on the way to work, and because then I have a son in high school playing high school football, and so they're playing sports too. So I'll wake up in the morning, 5 a.m., get ready. So with my son on the way to school at 6 something, I'll be going over like formations and coverages with him, right, and protections. So I'll drive him to school, and we'll be going over like formations and coverage. So I'm kind of like doing his mental work for his football, right? So then work is almost like a break for me, right? So then I go to work, and I teach and I do the English stuff and so forth. And then when I get out, if it's a day where like I'll train Lamar or something, so I'll have one son who goes to practice in high school. I'll have the middle school, maybe I'll drop him off to practice, and then my wife will pick him up, and then I'll go meet Lamar. And then from there with Lamar, we'll go about an hour and a half, 2 hours, going over drills and so forth. Then I'll hop in the car and race and maybe pick up the other one from his high school practice. Or if he doesn't have practice, because he's a quarterback, I'll have him come with Lamar. So I kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I train Lamar and my son. And my wife will pick up my other son and then my daughter. And then when I get home around 8 or 9, then I try to spend a little quality time with my daughter, look at the cartoons or play with the little dolls or have a tea party, the little things she likes. And then we do it back over again. So it's hectic, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's fun.
Wow. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is your role as his coach like during the football season?
Great. Yeah. So again, and I think this comes from also being a teacher, right? Like, and a coach for so long. We talk once a week. I again, just doing this long enough, and I don't ever contact him the night after, right after the game. I'll always, whether it's good or bad, I always contact him the next morning, Monday morning. During the season, Mike, and I say this, I try to be as positive as possible. Okay, I try to keep it. Now, I think it's been written. I'm pretty hard on him on the field, right? And I think he likes that. He responds to that. But during the season, I'm pretty positive. Okay, we either text or call, but I'll just say, good job. I try to be as positive as possible. And then if there's a stretch where I see something that needs to be corrected, I'll bring it up to him. And he's usually always receptive because for the most part, during the season, we talk once a week, usually that Monday morning. And we'll talk and I'll be positive. And if I need to slide something in where, hey, I'm noticing this, he'll say, okay, coach. I watch every game, the all 22. As soon as it comes out, I watch that. And then I make notes in my phone. Now the notes I make are me building for the off season. But like I said, if there's something that I'm starting to notice a trend in that may be affecting his performance or the team performance, then I'll on a Monday morning, I'll slide that in and kind of say, hey, you might want to look at this. And so that's what I do. So I'm building up for the off season, but then if I need to tell him something during season, I'll do that as well.
Joshua, I have a 2-parter if you don't mind. So first, Greg Roman. as a Bills fan, we had Greg Roman for a while,
Yes.
and we had some mixed success with him. I think personally that the pressure might be on Greg this year to really kind of maximize the offense. What is your? Do you think that Greg is maximizing Lamar's talents? And on the player side, on the personnel side, what is Lamar miss? The weapons need to be upgraded. I think everyone knows that. Probably especially at receiver. What type of receiver does he need? What would be best for his skill set?
Great question. So number one, and people may say I'm biased, but I really feel this way. And I know it's out there, and I know how it came. Lamar, I personally don't think Lamar needs a special type of offense. I think sometimes you can overthink it, right? Because he has this great gift. I think the best thing for Lamar, if you go back and look at Louisville, how they played, right? Again, he was dynamic. He was just as dynamic at Louisville without maybe a certain type of offense. You know what I mean? It was pro style offense, with some zone read. Obviously, I mean, that's just where the game's going, but he was very dynamic there. I think where you see Lamar best is because even if you go back and just watch his high school film on YouTube, obviously the line ain't that great like most high schools. So he ran around, but if you watch, he always ran around with his eyes downfield. If you go to Louisville, he moved around, eyes always downfield, trying to throw the ball. I think the best way to use Lamar Jackson is you can run a conventional offense, leaving that third or fourth option, which for a Tom Brady is the check down to a running back. It's Lamar taking off and getting some yards. Like, let the play break down and then let him go. We don't need in my opinion, right? I don't think you need as many designed runs. Let the play break down. let the athletic genius that he has, which I wish I could take credit for, like, right? I used to Lamar cut like this, cut like that. I can't. You know what I mean? I'd love to, but let the athletic genius, the movement genius that he is, just let it flow. Let him see what he sees and make it happen, but just run something conventional and he'll go from there. So I don't think, G-Ro has to, add on something, maybe even scale back a little bit, you know what I mean? And just let Lamar do what he does. And now also about the question about personnel, I think what Lamar needs is, I would say an Anquan Bolden type, you know what I mean? I'm trying to think that about 6 foot, 6'1" receiver, maybe 200-something pound possession receiver. You know what I mean? Who has a nice catch radius, who you can throw that ball to, and it's going to be caught. And I'll say this: a lot of people talk about Lamar throwing in the middle of the field. Well, Mark Andrews is very reliable. I'm throwing to him too. If you go back and look at every quarterback in the National Football League, and I actually did this because I'm analyzing. And I'm looking at these quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers. Go look how many times Aaron Rodgers targets Devontae Adams. And he'd be a fool if he didn't. And your guy, go look how many times Josh Allen targets Stephon Diggs. Look at where his game went to another level when he got Stephon Diggs. Go watch the first play of the game and where Josh Allen is going. You think it's a coincidence that Stephon Diggs is open, or is that on purpose? Or is Josh throwing to Stephon Diggs regardless? You know what I mean? So it's, it's like get him a guy that has a good body that can be a possession receiver or, and catch that ball. So I would say about 6'1", 200 pounds, thinking maybe Anquan Bolden. I don't think which is a plus field because you have a Hollywood Brown that can stretch the field. So that would be my take.
Allen Robinson was on the Zoom a couple weeks ago. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad addition.
Oh, really?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ask him about Baltimore?
Oh, I don't think we did. Damn it.
Yeah, Allen Robinson wouldn't be bad at all.
What's interesting? It's just like I'm fascinated by the Greg Roman dynamic there because we Jim Monas, he does my podcast with me, worked with the Bills, was second in charge. He was with Greg Roman in Buffalo. In our conversations, I mean, it's pretty clear, like he's kind of billed as this like mobile quarterback guru, but I don't get the sense that's necessarily what Greg Roman has ever really wanted. I mean, he wanted Matt Castle to be the guy in Buffalo, not Tyrod. He pulled for Castle to be the guy. Like I don't think he liked Tyrod a heck of a lot, to be honest.
Gotcha.
He gets to Baltimore, he's coaching at Lamar, he's coaching the MVP. He gets a lot of credit for that. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the know, but like, do you get any sense for like the kind of quarterback that Greg Roman really prefers? And like, what's that relationship really like? And then I also hear, look, I had a quarterbacks coach in the NFC tell me like his run design and the way he uses the quarterback in the run game, it's unbelievable. Like other teams are copying it. So there is that, but I don't know. Like I was always kind of quick to say, oh my God, like he's, from Kaepernick to Tyrod to Lamar, like, so, he's got some magic there. But then I heard the Castle thing. I talked to Jim and it's like, does he really want that kind of quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. And I can't speak to what he wants. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I will say this. I think he's amazing with the blocking scheme that he comes up with in the run game. He's very creative with that. Right. I would say that, and this is just me talking from the outside, right? Almost kind of like fan-like. There has been a pattern from San Francisco to Buffalo to now Baltimore, where it's happened almost 3 times, where it's kind of taken the league by storm, but then people kind of like, oh, that's what you're doing? You know what I mean? I think if we're, that's kind of happened 3 times now. If we're going to just be real about it. And so I don't know if he loves that type of quarterback, or is it just that he may love the run game and knows what to do in the run game. And if you have a running quarterback, it just gives you better numbers. And that may have just fallen into his lap, because even if you mention it, I think I don't remember with Tyrod, was he a free agent? I know he left Ravens, but I don't know if you guys brought him to be the starter.
No, I mean, it's like a 3-way competition.
Yeah, if you go back, kind of each one of them has been, Kaepernick wasn't going to be the starter. It kind of just happened. Tyrod just kind of happened. And then remember, Lamar just kind of happened. Flacco wasn't. And then it was Morningweg. And then Roman was just there. I think he was the tight end coach. And then he had this package that they started putting in. So like you said, it's kind of fallen into Roman's lap 3 times, these guys.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and he's amazing with his run blocking schemes. It's just worked for him. So maybe he loves mobile quarterbacks now. I don't know if he always did, but
he better. They're giving him an employment.
Yeah.
Oh man, I know Jason had another question here. I don't want to step in.
Sure. I just wanted to sort of get your assessment of that stereotype that we've been talking about for 30 plus years now, that you can't be an elite quarterback unless you're that pocket passer.
Yeah.
Where are we in that conversation? Is it going anywhere? Is there anybody on the horizon who can break that?
Man, that's a great question, and I kind of want to slow down to make sure I answer it right, thoroughly and correctly. Number one, I understand why we believe the pocket passer is the way to go. It's what we've seen, and then there's also just the strategic part of the game, right? That the way defenses are, they're at some point, you're going to have to take advantage of the mismatch or the coverage breakdown or what your offense can do, right? But I'll get back to that in a second. But I do think wholeheartedly, and honestly, really, I didn't get here until I started working with Lamar. We severely diminished the impact of the running quarterback, right? And if you go back to the history of the game, the quarterback was a running position. Right? If you go back to the very beginning, it was a running position. And if you even think about it logically, does it make sense to have 11 guys on the defense and then really only have 10 guys on the offense? Right? Because that's really what you do. If the quarterback just drop backs and pass, you're now down 1 guy in everything that you come up with, blocking schemes, all of this. So when you bring in the quarterback that actually is a threat to run, you actually make it an even ball game now. 11-11. Now the defensive coach really has to game plan for that 11th man instead of just saying, oh, he's there, but he's just standing there, especially in the run game. So I think if we're really going to be smart about this going forward, we've got to acknowledge that the mobile quarterback or having some mobility is the best way to play the position. Now, what I do think is we've had lazy coaches over the year in high school, college, and the NFL. When they see a guy who can run, instead of continuing his development of the passing game, what do they say? One, man, if he ain't there, take off. One, read, two, read, or take off, because that makes the coach's job easier. So now what you've done is you've trained this quarterback who has this special gift that you could use to dominate games on the ground and in the air because you're lazy, and he's giving you a bailout to make you look good, because once everybody turns and runs, he can go get you 10, 12 yards and keep the chains moving.
Yeah.
You're like, yo, if it's not there, take off. That's the coach being lazy. So what does the quarterback do? Now his legs become a crutch, right? He doesn't go through all the processing because he's got the great game changer. But then what happens, as we've seen, guys get hurt or they just get older and they haven't finished the mental processing. But I'll give you a great example of how it works. Look at Steve Young's career. Steve Young was this. He was the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. He was these guys. He was a run. But what happened? He continuously in that system with Bill Walsh and then George Seifert understood the game, learned it, had and had the discipline to understand where to go in the passing game. So I think that's where we're going. But I think it really starts with coaches. I think coaches have to not be lazy. Continue to discipline your quarterback to go through the mental exercise of your progressions. Understanding, though, hey, man, if you got those great legs, use them. They're a weapon. A yard is a yard. 10 yards through the air and 10 yards on the ground is still a first down.
I mean, it's 100 years old. There's so few blind spots left. And I really think that's the breakthrough mentality, that 10 on 12 logic that you put out there.
Yeah. It makes no sense. And like you said, there's only so many blind spots left. And look at what Saban and Belichick are creating with these mixed match coverages and all this stuff. They're really trying to cover everything now. And go back. Saban and Belichick, what's their kryptonite? The mobile quarterback.
Yep.
So we gotta have it. We gotta have it. And I think what's happening is, because we also had this stereotype that, and we've done this forever. If you were an athlete or a jock, you were done, right? Because you focus so much on your physical that you didn't focus on your mental. So we've got this stereotype that if you run a lot, you're not smart enough to pick up the coverages. And I think people don't realize the intelligence that's played in running the football, knowing when to run the football. Yeah. People talk all the time about reading the defense, Tom Brady and pre-snap reads and all of these things. And I just keep mentioning Tom Brady because he's the GOAT, right? But, Aaron Rodgers, all these other people. But do you realize how fast Lamar reads on that read zone option? Which is the same read. It's the same thing a quarterback does in the backside when you're reading your key defender. If he goes this way, I'm throwing to this, on the smash concept, right? Where am I going? If he comes up, I'm going high. If he goes back, I'm going low. Do people realize that's the same thing Lamar does on the zone read? And now go watch how fast he does it. That's the same mental awareness. So if a quarterback can learn that, what makes you think he can't learn to read the back end? It's just, again, disciplining your quarterback to continue to do that. And I think now people are starting to put that stereotype aside, and they're taking the athletic quarterback, mobile quarterback, and continuing to teach him and be disciplined with knowing the back end, and we're seeing it happen.
That was so perfectly put, Josh. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a symptom of a larger problem too. Like there's so many sticks up asses in this league, and so much archaic thinking, and everything moves slow with the NFL. I mean, right down to team doctors who have been there forever and are stabbing tie rod in the lung, and that's a horror.
Right.
Oh my God. I was texting Richie Incognito last night for the Buffalo crew here, and there's a story there. That team doctor screwed him up pretty bad this year.
Wow.
But
we had Richie down here in Miami.
That's right. Oh,
right.
He's great. But it just seems like it's a trickle up league. There are coaches who believe, okay, it's trickle down. What happens in we have our system, we have our way of thinking, and what we do, colleges are going to do. No, it's not like that. It's high school. It's college. It's anybody who saw Lamar at Louisville. It's like, just take that and do whatever with it. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem complicated. I guess my question is like, how much does ego just come into play with this all?
man, it's 100%, right? And that's where I think I've learned, whenever it's funny, like you're saying, when people go talk about the innovative NFL offense, usually they got it from college or high school. The play that they came up with that's so innovative, it's usually from college and high school. The NFL is a lot of nepotism, buddies, they don't, I was amazed at how many people didn't know what I thought they knew, in the league. You know what I mean? And again, it's this tight-knit system of, I coach with you, I know you won't undermine me, right? It ain't even so much if you're the best guy, will you not undermine me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to ego and so forth. And it's also, I'm a pro. So I remember I used to tell guys all the time, at every level, they think the guy under them doesn't know anything, right? So when you're a high school coach, the college coach is like, I don't care really his production. This dude doesn't know what he's doing, right? Is he got the height and weight? Then when you go to college, what's the pro coach say? Oh, those guys didn't know how to use you. If I get you, I'll do it. And that's why we got so many bad evaluations. Man, look at what the kid did and do what they did. If it worked, why change it? But these guys' ego says, oh, you weren't doing it right. If he threw for 3,000 yards, I can get him to throw for 4,000. No, you can't. You know what I mean? Just do what he's doing.
It's that good old boys club mentality.
Yep.
This is exactly what it is. It's just.
Yep. And it's crazy because this is the pinnacle of the sport.
Yeah.
It's the highest. I mean, there's nothing bigger than the NFL, and we've got a bunch of jabronis running around running it. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
Owns Sundays and billions of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, and it can permeate through every tentacle of an organization. I mean, team doctor to the coaching, to the scouting, to the ownership. I mean, it's. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole world. The fans don't see that. I mean, we hope to show here, but it's scary. It sucks for a guy like Lamar. I mean, there's so many talented guys out there. It's like, just let them do what they do, get out of the way, and we'll see what happens there in Baltimore, I guess. Right? Like, I mean, you've got something special there. Like, make it happen. Get him a receiver and make it happen.
Yeah, and I think, but to the credit, I think more people are starting now to get that message out, right? Where we're kind of letting, at least with the quarterback, right? They're starting to say like, hey, if they're good at something, let them do it. And I think Lamar doesn't even realize yet, but I think he's kind of a trailblazer in that area, right? Because even I'm part of an organization, QB Legacy, with Donovan McNabb. And, even talking to Donovan, I didn't realize he was like, I was like Lamar when I was an option quarterback at Syracuse, right? And then when I got there, they were like, well, can he do this and do that? And, and then remember they knocked him because he stopped running, right? Like he had to change his game. He felt like in the NFL. And how many of these guys is it like they were amazing college players, but then they got to the NFL and people felt like, hey, you need to fit into our system instead of just, man, do what their strengths are and let's win some ball games. So I don't even think Lamar realized. I think he's a trailblazer in changing people's mentality. Like, let me see what this guy does well and let me now bring that into the pro game.
Andy Reid wanted Cade McNown. He didn't even want McNabb. He didn't have final say, though.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you learn what these guys wanted, you're like, bro, you're the genius that we're always talking about.
I know, right? What happens, like, in the history of the NFL, if Tom Odrak isn't running the show, like, because he and Mark Ross, he's on NFL Network now, but they were running the Eagles. Like Monis was just saying this on the podcast because he was a scout there. But yeah, he said like they wanted McNabb. They knew he'd be good, but Andy Reid wasn't really a fan. He wanted that West Coast Cade McNown, and now Andy Reid is like the genius at the cutting edge of pro football. It's unbelievable.
Right,
man.
Yeah, it's a lot of luck, man, involved in becoming a genius, man.
There is, man. Well, man, hey, anybody else want to fire one off here, Josh, before we lose him? I mean, that was unbelievable, man. I can't thank you enough for being here.
That's all. I saw Jason and Andy. Go ahead. Whoever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've got a quick one. Often in the draft process, you hear a lot of guys, like the analysts, talking about kids growing up playing multiple sports. I heard Brandon Bean of the Bills always talking about he likes when players were a kid playing multiple sports. With Lamar like that, or did his mom have him only playing football?
Great question. So, I'm speaking of that stat. There's this fun thing about that multi-sports. I see this a lot, and then they'll put up this graphic of multi-sport, and I'll be like, did they really do a multi-sport? Because people will put up that Lamar was a multi-sport athlete, and it's really not true. He ran track for like 2 meets, right? He didn't practice. They were just like, yo, you're fast on the football field. Come run the 100 and the 4x1 for you. And if you look up, his time ain't that fast, right? But now they'll label him a multi-sport athlete. I'm like, bro, you ain't playing no other sport. And he knows it too. But so to answer your question, no, he only played football. Mom was a drill sergeant and was like, look, we ain't got no time for this other stuff. We're playing football. When we're not playing football, we're training for football. And even to that point, when they talk about it at the camp, because it's every Sunday in the afternoon for free, any kid in Pompano can come up. But they always say there were a lot of kids out there. The difference between Lamar was he just kept coming and kept training. And that was because his mom, if he was, no matter what was going on, there was a time he didn't play his 10th grade year. He still went out every Sunday and trained. So he did not play another sport. Now, if you ask him, he'll brag about his basketball prowess. And I will admit he can make some shots when we're in the gym. But nope, he never played another sport. Ran a couple track meets though.
Didn't play basketball in high school.
Nope, played nothing, just football.
Man.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Jason, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, first I got to remind you that Tyler Dunn has a heck of a shot. If you ever get the chance to play with him in Florida,
okay.
If you're ever in the same city,
okay,
get on
we're gonna put it to the test. Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. We like, all right, we don't let me go off on this tangent because I sound like Uncle Rico. But we went to college together. Our intramural team, Jason, do you still remember that game? We finished that game with like
one game for you, and it was like the championship game.
We had everybody fall out. I think we were down to 3 or 4 players in that intramural game at Syracuse, and I think we won. It was amazing. And nice. Jason, you're not a basketball player either, but you sucked it up. I appreciate it.
All right. Back to the serious question. So you've seen the whole football world try to press Lamar into the one-dimensional box. And we've seen so many careers ruined over time through that process. Is there any one guy that comes to your mind where you tell Lamar, don't let them make you like this guy? Or even your own kids, do you tell them, don't let them make you this guy? Who's the cautionary tale?
That's a good question.
That's a good one, man. That's kind of deep. Let me think now. Wow, that's a good one.
Biggest cautionary tale in all of football. Who is it?
Yeah, man. And I got a name, and I don't want to say it because he's a great guy and he's everywhere. But if I'm gonna be honest, man. You know what I mean? The one guy, I feel bad saying it. He lives down here too now, and he's great and all that stuff. Dang, Jason, that's tough, man.
Well,
that's
Tyler
tough.
Dunn
You may not play basketball
over beers, and if he says that, it's real.
Yeah. Okay. It's Michael Vick. It's Michael Vick, and it's not as much even as the being put into a box, but as if the lack of preparation that he had, right? Like he just didn't take the game seriously because he was so gifted. He had such an X factor that other people didn't have that he didn't take it seriously. He didn't prepare. And I think he could have had, and then you look back and he played like 12, 13 years, right? Even if you take away his time away, but it's like, even with the break that he had, he never became the player that he could have become, I think. That's the cautionary tale is Michael Vick. Don't be Michael Vick.
Which is interesting because it's like, I think there's a lot of people who think, that offense, they tried to make him this West Coast quarterback and it was the wrong scheme for Mike Vick. They should have just but we don't talk about that aspect of it. Like maybe he just didn't really work as hard as he should have.
Yeah.
To take advantage of
And even to, and even bring that up, you know, on the pro day when I did Lamar's pro day at Louisville, right? So all the schools came out. One of the reasons that I wanted to go to the Ravens was James Urban, the quarterback coach, came up to me, asked me about Lamar's character, work ethic, his learning, you know, what kind of learner, what student was he? But he did mention I was with the Eagles when they had Michael Vick. And I remember saying, okay, that was when Michael Vick was at his best, right? Where he kind of passing and running, it was kind of more balanced. And so, you know, I felt better about the Ravens because of that. And just thinking back, like, okay, that's when we actually saw Michael Vick attempting to try and throw the ball. But like Tyler said, I think we don't bring enough up that he didn't put in the work, unfortunately.
The first time I ever heard that, I didn't know that was the case.
Yeah, if you go back and you look, he mentions it now, but yeah, he was always the last guy there, first one to leave. He didn't prepare. He just basically rolled out of bed and went and did his thing on Sundays. Which again, you go back, you're like, bro, amazing athlete. But what if you had to put the time and effort in?
Yeah.
Was it being sidetracked by the lifestyle, or was that just the guy he's always been?
Yeah, you know, and I think that's another thing. People, I think we bring it up, but we don't pay enough attention to, like, when a football player schedule is very regimented going from high school to college, right? Like, even just give my son, for example, when he wakes up at 5:30, everything he does until he goes to bed at 10 is pretty much already set out for him, right? Like, he's getting up, shower, brush the teeth. We're going to go over a little bit of film stuff. He goes to school, class. After school, he's got study hall, weight room, you know, practice. Then we come home, it's eat, shower, you know, and then homework, to bed. And this is what football players have at college. Everything's laid out for them. Then when you get to the NFL, it's like, yo, practice. And then the rest of your time is free. You've got to have something internally that says, I'm going to spend all this free time that I have with a boatload of money and a boatload of fame. I'm going to spend that in my room or at the facility studying. Now put on the fact of it that I'm the best athlete on the field, so I can get away with some things. And I think that goes back to what I said about what's happened with the athletic quarterback. It's this word. A lot of times when I do interviews, people ask me, like, what are you focusing with Lamar on? The word I probably use the most is discipline, because that's what it is, right? Like, if you're the best athlete on the field, you can get away with some things. It's the discipline on the field to go through your progressions and know that you have a hot here or a side adjustment or a check down here. But it's that discipline off the field as well to say, yeah, I probably if I get in a bind, I can outrun that guy. But if I continue to work and watch film and all this, I'm going to see some holes in the defense or whatever, and I can make this play that I don't have to. My teammate can make it. And you got to have that discipline off the field that a lot of guys, when they get into the league, they don't have, because somebody's been telling them what to do all of their life.
Man, it's fascinating, and then that's where you can really push Lamar to not be Vic, right? I mean, to reach something higher than he ever was. But
yeah,
I know Joel's got his hand up, so
yes, sir.
Let's hear it, man.
Yeah, I was fascinated when you explained how your skills as a teacher help you as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought most coaches that could coach quarterbacks at the highest elite level also had years and years of experience, either as a quarterback or as a quarterback coach. You got to figure it out. How did you do it?
Hey, I'm glad you asked that, because I don't want this to sound bad, but I think a lot of people go wrong getting the person that played it for so long, right? Because it's almost like you always hear the story about the suit. Like MJ, I love Michael Jordan. By the way, he's the GOAT. I don't know if anybody disagrees, LeBron, whatever, but MJ's the GOAT. But he might be the worst general manager ever, right? You know, talent evaluator ever. Like,
I got a Hornets shirt on, so I know. Yeah.
You know, besides this LaMelo Ball, right? Like, he might be the worst talent evaluator ever, right? But I think because, you know, again, you're not going to find you again, MJ, right? Like, and I think for people who have played the position or for all this time or whatever, there's certain biases that come in because, you know what I mean? Like, there's bias, George. I like that, Jason. Yes, your cousin, right? Your distant cousin, MJ. Yes, sir. Got to stick together. Family got to stick together. But yeah, there's certain biases that come in and how you play the position. I'll give a perfect example of this, Joel, and then talk about, you know, where I came up with. But so I worked with a guy at a high school, and he was a quarterback coach as well. We did it together. And he was a successful quarterback, played in the SEC, all of these things. But he was a game manager. That was his, you know, his style. Well, how do you think he coached our quarterback? To be a game manager, right? That was his mindset. Now me, I'm a gunslinger mentality. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, if you see it, stick it in there. I'm very much a person. So for instance, like I tell my players all the time, when you step on those white lines, you're the coach. It's your decision. If you want to say screw me, you better be right. But I ain't mad. If you see something, I'm very much empowering my player, right? Because you're the one, you may see something different than me. You're out there. I'm very big into, like, you know, intuition, instincts. So I'm out there, like, if you see something, make a play, you know what I mean? Whatever. You think you can get in that window? Heck, try it, especially in practice. Man, try it. If it's an interception, who cares? We'll live to fight another day. So that's how I'm wired. But this other guy, he was a game manager. So he would, when our quarterback would come to the sideline, why'd you do that? The check down was right there. You know, and so now what happens to, you know, our guy? Now he's nervous. His booty hole's real tight. You know what I'm saying? He don't want to make a mistake. Because that's how the quarterback coach played his whole life. So now you've just created a junior. You're every quarterback you now have is a junior. So to you, Joel, nobody can be my junior. I'm a teacher. You get what I'm saying? As a teacher, there's this thing called differentiated instruction. I might have a genius in my class. I might have an average student. And I might got a kid that eats paint. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I might have all of that in my classroom. And what do I have to do? I have to find a way to teach each one of those kids in the class, right? How do I give them this information so that they can receive it and still be, you know, they're tantalized. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm getting it. How do I keep the genius involved, but how do I not lose, you know, the kid eating glue, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm coaching a player as a teacher, again, when you prepare your lesson plan, you're just researching, right? You're grabbing every school of thought on this subject. And so that's what happened with me in quarterbacking. I played defensive end. My job, I used to want to eat the quarterback, right? I used to tell my partner, we're going to have a meeting in the backfield, right? I'm trying to kill the quarterback. So one of the things is I knew what I didn't like quarterbacks to do, right? I knew, you know, the quarterback who had a quick release got on my last nerves, right? I liked the quarterback who kind of tried to make something happen because then I could double back around and get him. So I had that limited knowledge. But the rest of the position, I had to research. And I believe being a teacher and then also being a lawyer, you know, because that's why I left law, because that's all I did all day was research crap. That was so boring. I thought it was gonna be like the Black Perry Mason or something, right? I'd be in the courtroom. I'm always at the desk researching. This was terrible. So, you know, but the skill set I used in coaching, so my son was a quarterback. And I'm like, in South Florida, we didn't produce that many great quarterbacks. So I was like, I want my son to really know how to play this position. So I started researching all these schools of thoughts, different schools of thoughts. And then, so I got all that together. I came up with how I thought it should be, but I learned all the stuff. And so then when I started getting out there and coaching quarterbacks, I started realizing, hey, there's many ways to play this position that work, you know, as I'm watching. And so because I didn't have this bias of how I played the position, I'm flexible enough to see where a player is comfortable. And then I've researched enough that I can now coach them in that manner so that they can be the best that they can be. Quick little side story. This is actually how I become friends with Van Warren. the guy who coached Lamar, and this is why I actually stuck out there. So my son was playing quarterback, and I don't know if you guys remember, but go back to Aaron Rodgers at Cal, Tedford. Down here in South Florida, because we had Dan Marino, if you remember, Dan Marino had that quick release. You know what I mean? He'd get rid of it, just like that. So everybody here in South Florida grew up watching Dan Marino. So where do they think you should hold the ball? Up by your ear. You know, they tell you, like you're holding the phone, right? Now, I hated this. I hated it, right? Because I'm sitting here and I'm watching Tom Brady, chest, Aaron Rodgers, chest. So I train, again, I research. I even research how holding it up here keeps the scapula tense, so it actually takes away velocity off the ball. Like when I research, Joel, to answer your question, I go in because I was my law background, right? And then my teaching background. The worst thing, kids are like sharks. They smell blood. They know when a teacher doesn't know what he's talking about, right? So I always had to be prepared for class. So I researched all this stuff. So I knew about the scapula, the body, and all this stuff. And I'm like, this makes the scapula tense. You actually want it loose to throw. So you loosen your shoulder. So I'm researching all this. Everywhere I go, the guy would say, hey man, hold the ball up by your ear. It got to a point, every time they said it, I'd be like, okay, son, let's go. I'd leave. Because I'm like, if you think that, let me get away from you. Van Warren came to me after the first day, that training session. He said, hey man, your son holds it here. We kind of train up by your ear. So I'm about to be like, hey son, let's go. But then he said, but I see Peyton Manning holds it by his ear, but Tom Brady holds it here. So whichever is more comfortable for your son, I'm cool with that. That's actually the real how I became Lamar Jackson's coach. I wouldn't have stuck around if he had told my son to keep by my ear. He's the first guy who said, hey, there's multiple ways to hold the ball. So my research and then also my flexibility, I believe, is what helps me be a quarterback coach. And I don't have the bias of how I played the position.
Wow.
Great answer. Thanks.
That was
That was
unbelievable.
We got Tyler. I'll take your job.
Joel, yeah, that was that. I think you got the best answer of the night. I mean,
yeah, that was a great question, Joel.
It's kind of like, I mean, we see why Lamar was the MVP. I mean, it's that outside the box kind of thinking. I mean, just thinking of the game and the position in just ways we haven't thought of it before. I mean, that's what it's about.
I was just telling my son today, I'm like, yo, football ain't that hard. Smart people didn't create the game. What are smart people doing? Building technology, STEM, okay? This game ain't that hard. We're making it hard. You know what I mean? And like I said, I've just learned over the years, there's different ways to play it. I was not a fan of Lamar's. I had bought into the group think as well. Lamar's style wouldn't work. And then when I got to know him, understood what they were doing with him, even at Louisville was a lot of designed runs that we thought were scrambles, were designed runs. I started talking to him, learned he understood coverages, how to read the field. I understood what I started talking to him, learning what he was looking at. And I'm like, yo, this kid is a quarterback. Now, is he like any other young person? Is he undisciplined? Is there stuff that he needs to work on? Yeah, but then I started looking, I'm like, yeah, now let me start talking about all the great quarterbacks that come up, the first round quarterbacks. It's 50-50 bus rate. What is it about it, right? These guys could play. What happens? You know what I mean? And so I looked at Lamar and I'm just like, no, this kid can play the position. And I think what people are talking about even now in this draft, he got to a place who at least paid attention to his strengths and played to those strengths. I do think they don't have to play as much to his strengths, right? But at least they played to his strengths. And that's why you saw a young man win the MVP in his second year and been to the playoffs every year that he's been in the game.
John, that was amazing, man. I think when we were texting, I was like, just hang as long as you want. If it's 15, 20 minutes, you got to get rolling. You can hit the road, but here we are an hour and 16 minutes into it. So, dude, I can't thank you enough for hanging out and, just sharing your insight, your wisdom. We've only had a handful of these, but this was the best one, bar none. So thank you so much, man. That was awesome.
Hey, Again, I didn't even know what this was. You know, you tagged me, and I'm like, hey, bro, you know, we had a great interview. You were cool. I remember your kid. You know what I mean? So I'm like, whatever you want. Then when I got, I was like, oh wait, guys gonna be drinking, asking me questions. I don't know how long I'll be there. But man, you know, ain't no telling what they might say.
Right. It
But,
started.
man,
Some Ravens fan just like tweeted at me a few days ago and was like, "Hey, you know, any Ravens content that go along?" And I'm like, "Hey, Josh Ray, what you got going on this weekend? Let's do this." So
right, I get this random tag, and I'm like, hey, bro, I'll do it anytime. You know what I mean? But no, man, great guys. Hey, I just want to say thank you for the questions, man. They were amazing. You know, a lot of times when you're doing these interviews, you know, they've got a not agenda, but there's a certain point they're trying to get at. So just the ability to just have you guys speak your mind, ask your questions, and we just talk about it was really cool, man. So
yeah.
I appreciate all you guys on the call, man. Excellent questions, man. It was a pleasure.
Dude,
Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was
Thanks
great.
so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah,
No problem,
thank you.
man.
That was awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Josh. Well, let's stay in touch.
No problem,
and
man.
man, if we can ever do anything here, just holler.
All right, guys. Take care, man. Appreciate you. All right.
See you, man.
Thank
Thank you.